Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and welcome back to the mix breakdown series. Today in this video we're going to be breaking down the piano mix. We're going to be looking at the piano mix for this track here today, but before we dive in, if you are ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at the piano mix for this song. Let me start, of course, by playing you the finished mix for the song in case you don't remember what it sounded like here. Then I'll solo up the piano so you can hear the piano by itself here. We're looking at the second chorus for this track here. Let me get my mic up. All right, here's our finished mix for the song.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart.
So you can hear the piano still really full sounding, even though it fits into the mix really, really well. So we're going to talk about trimming stuff out here to make room so it sits in the track, but also keeping the piano very full sounding inside the track. So we got 2 plugins we're working with here. We got an EQ, and then we've got the 1176 dial compressor, the FET comp here inside of Studio One. We're going to look at the EQ first here, so I'm going to turn off the compressor. We've got a few moves going on here on the EQ. Some of them are more subtle than others. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger of boosts. I'm going to take off all the moves here. We're going to look at just the high-pass filters to start here, or just the high-pass filter to start, excuse me. We're up at 142 hertz here on the high-pass filter. Now that may seem kind of high, especially for a full range piano part, right? Because there's a lot of stuff going on lower in the frequency range, but we don't need that inside the mix. So take a listen to the piano here before the high pass, and then I'll kick the high pass in. You can hear the difference before and after. We are clearing up a ton of room in the bottom end for our bass guitar and for our kick drum. And it also focuses the frequency range more on the high mid and the high end of the piano, which is that pretty sound that we want to hear. That's the frequency range that we want to cut through the mix and to be heard. Not the low end here, not the low mid area. So that's where we're going next here. Once we've taken care of the bottom end, we've rolled up our high pass filter to clear up bottom end room for bass guitar and for the kick drum and to focus the frequency range a little bit. Then we've got 2 moves here to clean up our low mid area. We've taken care of the bottom end. Now we're going to take care of the low mid. I had a little bit of frequency ringing here around the 200 hertz mark. So we're at 172. You can see I've narrowed the Q a little bit. Let me play you without this cut, then I'll kick the cut in and I'll boost it up so you can hear the frequency range that I'm pulling out here. You can hear there's a couple different frequencies down in the bottom end here in the low mid area that are starting to ring out a little bit, and I didn't want to get too surgical and start notching out a bunch of frequencies down here around 200 hertz. That's a little bit too unnatural, and sometimes that's more work than you need. On a piano sound like this, you want to try and keep it as natural sounding as possible, and that means sometimes leaving some resonance in, so it sounds more realistic, it sounds more natural. If we go in and notch all these frequencies out, we can end up with something that's too hollow sounding in the low mid area. Our next frequency we're taking care of is the muddiness down here in the low mid. We're up at 297 now, so about 300 hertz. Q's at normal now, so we're back to a normal, gentle style Q. We're pulling out about 2.5 dB here. So we pull out some of the heaviness. We're pulling out a part of the sound here that we don't need in the low mid area. It's not contributing energy to the sound. It's just giving us muddiness and obscuring the rest of the sound. We don't need that in the mix. We're not going to hear that inside the song. It's just going to compete with electric guitar sounds. So we're pulling a little bit of that out. Not so much that we thin out the sound though. Remember, we want to keep some of that weight in the bottom end so it sounds like a big full piano here. The next thing we're pulling out here is a little bit in the mid-range here. Sometimes the mid-range can give the piano this honkiness that makes it sound really digital or really nasally sounding. So we're at 1K here and we're pulling out 1.5 dB. And I've narrowed the Q a little bit so we don't reach too much into the high mid or too much into like the 500 hertz area, because that stuff sounds okay here. So without the cut and then with it. It's just a little bit of the frequency range here from maybe like 800 up to about 1.5. That's kind of honky sounding, just pulling 1.5 dB out there. And again, we've narrowed the Q, so we're not affecting too much of the high mid frequency here. Now, before we talk about the high boost here, I want to get the compressor in place here. Usually before I'm doing any kind of boosts on things like piano or guitar or vocals as well, I like to get my compression in place. That way I'm boosting top end into the compressor here, and the compressor is going to hold that boost down. That way I'm not boosting and then trying to compress that boost. I have the compressor in place, so it kind of acts as like a ceiling or a balance as I boost into it here. I love using this 1176 style compressor on piano. It just does something to the attack and it gives some extra energy as well. So the attack here is at 0.55 milliseconds. So medium, slower attack for this unit, but still very, very fast in general. And then release is all the way up at 50 milliseconds here. You can see how much reduction we're doing here as I hit play. So without it and then with. We're only doing about 3 dB reduction here with this unit, but this compressor, the FET comp here, an 1176 style compressor, to me always solidifies the sound tonally as well as volume wise for the input signal here. So on the piano coming in, it's evening out the sound volume wise, so that's the job of a compressor, right? But also because it's, a vintage style emulation here, it's giving us some energy, so it's evening out the sound frequency wise as well. It brings up some of the low mid thickness and balances that out, and it's going to help here as we boost into it here. So we've got our compressor set, only doing about 3 dB reduction here. Now we're going to go back and we're going to boost top end into the compressor here. We're at about 5K, 4.95K, and we're going to do a 4 dB boost. We're doing 3.84 dB boost here. So take a listen. This is going to add a ton of brightness to our piano. Suddenly our piano has a ton of life and a ton of brightness up on the top end. That's what this boost is doing. We're giving it that shine, we're giving it that shimmer up on the top end, and this is going to help it cut through the mix a little bit as well. So let me unsolo it here. We're going to throw it back in the track, and I'll A-B our processing here on the piano.
One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far.
Just 2 plugins to get our piano sitting in the track here. EQ, getting rid of the frequencies we don't need, so all of the extra sub area, the muddiness in the low mid, some of that honkiness. Getting our compressor in place to balance out the sound frequency-wise as well as volume-wise, and then boosting top end to get the brightness we need for the piano to cut through the mix. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.